Hi, Promise Fellow Supervisors. My name is Noam Wiggs, and I'm the Training Development and Evaluation Director. And I'm just tagging in for help in order to do some pre-recorded trainings. And right now, I have a brief piece on policies that I am doing for these thoughtful folks here. So if you've already watched the member timesheet ones, I've already said this, but essentially Michaela, Emily, and Rosa will be doing a lot of this work with Keita as their guidance, doing HR lens. And I'm tagging in just to kind of do some pre-service trainings, and I'm sure I'll be intersecting with this content throughout the year. But right now, I'm just going to jump into it. So first and foremost, we are the employer of your people. They very much are, and I hope they are considered like site staff, but they're not staff. They're an AmeriCorps person that signed up for a year of service, and they're serving through us at your site. But essentially what that means from more of an HR lens is that if there's anything that comes up, whether that's policy related, discipline, anything like that, it needs to go through us as we are the employer. And then we also do all the benefit pieces, do the living allowance if somebody enrolls in our health insurance, etc. And a big piece, if there's anything that ever happens on site where somebody has an accident, they need to report it to us within 24 hours, so that way we can cover them through our workers' comp. And we do have other opportunities, and we'll be doing other benefit pieces on the final below, whether that's around childcare, loan assistance, all of those pieces. And as we jump into just like anything that could go along like the coaching or discipline side, essentially by their member agreement, they've agreed to a code of conduct of like obeying all the rules, just being a thoughtful, caring person, making sure that they're directing any concerns to us and yourselves. And they're engaging with student records, making sure that they're keeping necessary pieces thoughtful, through the lens of FERPA. And just meeting expectations. And that's often two sets of expectations. That's ourselves and yourselves. And so at no time, could anybody do any one of these things? And I know you can read through this list. The big three, and we'll get into this in the live training too, are advocacy. A person can't be wearing their AmeriCorps A and talking to a legislator, pieces like that. Excuse me. They can't be referring for abortion services. That's a big piece in AmeriCorps land that can't happen. And they can't be evangelizing for a church organization. And there's other pieces, such as, there can't be substance abuse as you're doing pieces. You can't have a felony. You can't be, just inappropriate in general. And so if any of these things happen, you got to let us know. Like I said, we are the HR folks. And so we will be the ones that has to instigate anything that happens with it. I will just quick share with you, and you'll see more of this in the live training. We try to do our best to do coaching. Right now I'm on the Google site. And if anything does happen, we'd expect, that there's some version of an improvement plan, but more often this is around somebody's not showing up when they said they're going to. So, students need support services at 8:30. You got to be here by 8:30, or I don't know. Trying to think of other common examples. Somebody's using, I don't know, not grade level language as they talk to somebody, and they could accidentally be, offending, or not realizing that they're being thoughtfully engaging with their audience. And so we do have a coaching policy. We'll go into it deeper. I'll give the link to this. But to jump back into this training and let you explore that on your own, here we go. All right. We are trying and hopeful that this year is less of a remote year by the nature of what COVID has created over the last year plus. But if you do expect there to be some version of remote support, please just keep in mind that you need to have real clear expectations on what that means. and we don't have like a set of rules. You won't have like a list from us that they need to be doing this online. This will like your guidance and your expectations. Um, I'll get into the COVID lens on this next piece as well here in a second. But one piece that has been very easily true for us over the 20 plus years we've been around is that it's Minnesota Alliance with Youth. We're supporting students in the state of Minnesota through middle schools, high schools, community centers. And so if there is something out of state, you need to let us know, because office actually through our workers' comp to make sure that it can happen and that person would be covered. So that way they could get service hours and still be, safe and taken care of. But if there's anything along the lines of COVID that happens again, there were people that served almost all of their hours last year remotely. And with that, by the nature of their, support or family structures, it made sense for them to do all that support, not in the state of Minnesota. And as long as you check in with us first, it is most likely okay, but we have to make sure that person's taken care of, that we are able to cover them over workers' comp and any other pieces. So if there is a remote reality that happens again and out of state comes with that, just check in and we will happily offer any guidance. And then as you go into this year, we don't have Promise Fellows do home visits by themselves, which often just holistically hasn't happened in my 6 years here. Also through the lens of like COVID, making sure that they're protected, if and when they are doing something that is not in your probably controlled setting, but just saying that out loud, that they're not allowed to do home visits by themselves. A Promise Fellow could potentially drive. We do discourage it. And often when a Promise Fellow drives, they are doing it because they've gone through your certification process and they are covered under your school or your community center's insurance because they went through that process. Because if they do something and there is an accident, or if they drive a young person and there is an accident and they don't have that, it's on their insurance, and that could be quite hard. So we discourage it. It can happen, but please make sure that if it's doing it, or if a member's doing it, they're doing it because it is okay by you, and preferably through like a district vehicle or a community center vehicle. And best practice, request proof of insurance prior to any of this kind of stuff. And social media, we will default, and we encourage people to not friend students just in order to create a thoughtful boundary. That said, social media could be the best way to actually communicate with students, and that's just part of your culture. And that's completely okay. We will default to your rules on that. We will say out loud at the beginning of the year that, please don't friend students unless it's okay by your site and you're directed to. And then we also go through to make sure that we're educating people on like FERPA expectations, so that way they're not sharing any personally identifiable information in a problematic way. Overall, once again, this defaults to your institution's or your site's realities and guidance. We will and are required to have branding of our AmeriCorps folks. We used to see people a lot more in person. Now that we're virtual, even though we're going into an in-person year, it's just harder to get like, the I'm serving here posters. But we do get your AmeriCorps person lots of swag, shirts, sweatshirts, and things like that. We are not going to give them, 5 days of clothing that we expect them to wash and repeat for another one. So it's not possible to probably be wearing an AmeriCorps something every day. But we would love for your folks and your audience, your students, your staff to know that this person's signing up for a year of service, and wearing that AmeriCorps A matters, just so somebody knows that they are thoughtfully investing in that community. And service is hard. It's not the same as being a paid staff member. So please nudge that. And my final piece before this short bit closes, is accommodations. Here's a definition for accommodations. I'm not going to read it. Essentially, I'm just going to offer like the overarching guidance that we've reached out to all of your Promise Fellows as they go through our onboarding. If there's anything that's an accommodation that's been requested, we will do our best, or we will communicate with you, whether it's things that they need to engage with you, or on our side through the training that I'll lead, what they need through us. And to the best of our abilities, we just ask that everyone does their best for accommodations. And we'll make sure that we brainstorm with you what's the best possible way. And along with this, we're engaging with an audience that might not be have education that requesting for accommodations is the thing. So if you're a AmeriCorps person, says something in passing that they need something in order to help with their concussion systems or symptoms or something like that, it is on us to do our best to be like, okay, that wasn't a formal request, but I need to engage with this person and make sure that they're being taken care of. And then of course, making sure that all medical information is kept confidential, between ourselves and yourself, just to help protect that person. Trying to think. The final piece on requesting accommodation, or the second to last piece, is that Kita, the person I said that kind of offers guidance for that HR team or that operations team, would be the person that does all this, and she's already been going through this with Promise Fellows, onboarding pieces, and making sure she's communicating if there's anything that's already known that somebody's already asked for. And then in the lens of COVID, it is technically, if somebody does not fall into an at-risk category, there is no unfortunate legal obligation to provide accommodation. So that has been hard this past year because somebody could be living with somebody who has an at-risk one, and so they are intersecting on a daily basis, but by the definition of accommodation is not required that it happens. We ask that everyone does their best. So if there's a way that you can offer an accommodation for your person and you'd still be able to get the support services for the student population that they're engaging with, awesome, please do it. If the world fully goes remote again, unfortunately, then of course your Promise Fellow could go remote. But the baseline expectations, unless they're in an at-risk category, that they're doing whatever staff on site's doing. So if staff is on site doing support services, then they are expected to do that. And once again, this is where we're just all trying to help each other out. So if there's something that can be done, let's just work together to make it happen. So that way that person's service term is the best version it can be. And finally, once again, questions. There'll be a bubble that pops up. Type any questions that you have, and look forward to virtually seeing you soon.